the new ebook by Rosalina Gutman, Paradox of Invisible Dissonance in Fugue Parody by J.S. Bach, brings very big surprises even for well-familiar with Bach's music connoisseurs of jazz and contemporary music. And it had been stirring up college discourse throughout the globe due to its consequential didactic update on teaching Bach. One of the key focuses of this condensed to the basics of didactic update ebook is on the examination of the collective blind spot that led to the significant discrepancies of most didactic aids with the score facts related to band by dogma dissonant sonorities hiding in the plain sight, and despite being hard to miss, such as clashing cluster chords. And this perceptual phenomenon is ever more bizarre and sensational since Bach made special efforts to embolden these dissonant sonorities and to assure that they stand out, leaving them with no resolution, while adding additional rhythmic stress with syncopation in order to further emphasize and bring out clashing effect. But none of these special efforts to demonstrate bold defiance of dogmatic limitations made any difference. The ebook points to the habit of the revealed through this fugue roots of the obvious misinterpretation about this piece, as well as the rest of the legacy of Bach as the consequence of the entraining of hazardous for health emotional repression during childhood studies of his music used for early beginners, due to the false educational standard for so-called historically informed performance, based on the average music making and irrelevant to the subversive nature of Bach's creative efforts. Readers have the chance to observe rather staggering result of required limitations for dynamics that manifested in the collectively practiced cognitive paralysis of reading notation ability among many musicians, indiscriminate of their academic titles, honorary awards, fame, and acclaim. This is the sobering and invaluable lesson from Bach for all musicians and their audiences on the importance to combat zombification both in music and beyond. And also the addendums to the main part provide invaluable insights on mapping directions for the research on the multidisciplinary implications of, based on Bach's music-embodied reflection capacity to reveal deeper understanding of the human psyche in a broader sense, beyond the music realm. This information for undeniable need for changes in teaching approaches to Bach's, that is the cornerstone subject in music pedagogy, come with the moral and ethical dilemma involving such choices as: should this unearthed from distortions figurae in the style of parody be performed with consideration of liberated from oblivion score facts of dissonance metaphors and related grotesque satire meaning? Or should this tiny maverick be performed according to the still remaining and irrelevant to Bach's own notation false educational standard for emotional repression and limitations for dynamics, in commonly boring manner and with no clarity of voicing? However, this choice can be made easily thanks to dopaminergic impacts of musical humor penned down by Bach, and thanks to easy-to-follow score scaffolding with highlights and graciously provided explanation by author Rosalina Gutman. Anyone with even moderate proficiency of reading music notation would be able to identify left undetected dissonant sonorities instantly and easily. And most importantly, everyone would be able to enjoy the fun of sharing laughter with Bach, despite the time divide, and thanks to his notated laughter test for his students to grasp and to project emotional resonance to notated sense of humor. And once the dynamically rich and emotionally infused qualities of Bach's polyphony are tasted, it is hard to go back to old, dull, and senseless ways of mistreating music with planted in it dopaminergic effects of musical humor. Such effects were well calculated by the master music educator with neuroscientist's mindset, trying to help his own students to overcome the somatic inertia of self-addiction with the technique for the keyboards that were dominant before the emergence of hammer action in fortepiano that took place during Bach's time. This employment of humor makes Bach's polyphony addictive, since music can compete even with the addict's cravings for harmful substances. No, once identified, these self-explanatory and indisputable score facts need no additional archival records, and thus no additional Bach scholarship for their identification, blocked by perceptual paradox. Author's pedagogical experience of piano instructor had been the key to Bach-related riveting, textbook-changing discoveries. and her natural resonance to the aims for using music as transformative force of her colleague extraordinaire, master music instructor Bach, allowed for seeing fundamentals of his music hidden in plain sight. Such unique perspective had been largely missing in the contemporary Bach scholarship, resulting in major negative impact on the development of many musicians, according to the evidence of observed perceptual paradox of invisible dissonance. And Rosalina Gutman's outstanding abilities of music educator had been internationally recognized for fostering prodigious success in young students in defiance of low educational standards. Without any particular intention to diminish importance of anyone's ego, the author Rosalina Gutman went out of her way to share her stunning discoveries about subliminal mind in accessible ways and making complexities simpler and easier to understand and to use for preventing hazardous impacts on mind development by institutionalized cognitive dissonance. But as the consequence, her publication also resulted in breaking the superficial taboo by Bach scholars who gave themselves the authority to make rules for performers of Bach's music, inadvertently exposing their lack of most basic grasp of practical skills that polyphony of Bach entails. Politically correct tradition, propelled by more recent eugenics, deleted the facts of Bach's professional duties of music teacher, including the subject of his teaching at-risk youth at the school at St. Thomas Church, also involving a great deal of counseling, erased the significant for his legacy subject. It also erased the fact that many of his compositions were informed by educational and developmental needs of his students. In order to overcome collective perceptual phenomenon of the failure in reading notation, no special expertise nor additional Bach scholarship for archival records is necessary, since these facts of the score are indisputable and self-evident. Readers will learn that creation of this fugue is linked directly to the very traumatic events of Bach's lifelong battle against systematic persecution of musicians by devaluation and marginalization, and limiting essential needs by induced impoverishment. Bach and all musicians along with humanity deserve official apology for the senseless betrayal of his legacy by politically correct distortions of his life of prisoner of conscience, who was falsely imprisoned for giving his notice of leave to his ill-minded employer, known to mistreat musicians with cruelty. Much more clarity are overdue in musicological literature on such issues that are related to his refusal to be censored by mediocrity, leading to his decision to leave when he lost hopes for convincing Duke of Weimar to respect his work of highly capable musician. As the result of expressing moral indignation about devaluation of musicians' profession, Bach had become the victim of lifelong witch hunt by elaborate character assassination with the unfair stigma of convict after being thrown to jail on bogus accusations. No, Bach committed no crime when he spoke the truth to the power about dire incivility of human rights violations against musicians. Instead, Bach was turned into the victim of crime of false retaliatory imprisonment while suffering from false accusations that he could not afford to disprove with legal defense for the reason of extreme poverty. And millions of musicians of many generations had been suffering from the same systemic and normalized persecution of this profession, preventing musicians to act as consciousness transformers at unaffordable price to humanity, causing significant underdevelopment of the brain function among millions of people, and preventing humankind from attaining higher level of consciousness by learning the skills to harness music instinct. Another pedagogical outcome of this publication is prevention of hazardous emotional repression. The author goes into variety of reason to demonstrate that it is irrelevant to Bach's music, the experimental spirit of which belongs more to jazz and contemporary era than to the time of Baroque period. But the author assists the responsible for standards and policy organizations in music education with understanding of the impermissible nature of inducing students into the practice of emotional repression and planting cognitive dissonance through double standard in exam requirements. The listing of studies on the harms of emotional withholding assist on the swift decision of liberating musicians who perform Bach from forcing this giant of musical intellect into unfit for him Lilliputian standards. Once musicians could master the process of emotional liberation by applying Bach's tool for resolving cognitive dissonance, multitude of problems can be solved, making our world a better place for all. And this makes this guide to heart-centered approach to Bach by the author Rosalina Gutmann simply indispensable. This universally yearned solution for the great vastness of problems brings tangible hope for self-propelled evolution of human brain beyond self-defeat. It is so effective thanks to joy neurochemicals involved in all intercellular communications that are regulated by the matching vibrations, according to Professor Candace Pert, who shared her observations in her best-selling book Molecules of Emotion, with preface by Dr. Deepak Chopra, the renowned consciousness expert and author of over 100 books. Many more details about all that and much more could be found upon the EasySF download of this ebook. Share Bach's call for camaraderie, laughter at the moral atrocity culture that normalized nonsense and promoted retaliation to positive change, since it remains emblematic and crucial today, like never before. And to promote the spirit of camaraderie of musicians to battle for the human right for the freedom of expression through music without emotional confinement, the new ebook is available at 25% discount now for the limited time during book launch. See info on how to apply discount e-coupon in the description of the YouTube channel and use it at the website Paradox of Invisible Dissonance. Them. And in the spirit of camaraderie, please provide your feedback, testimonials, and include your own publication or project that would be featured to the attention of the global family of Bach's fans.